All right, so the big story. Let's try and. This probably should have taken longer than 5 minutes, but we'll try and do this. Okay, so Dave has put out there this week, on top of saying, oh, they were never supposed to unify the titles, like it was always supposed to be this, like last week, and then he got proven wrong. And now this week he's like, oh, the plan is still like not to unify the titles. They're going to get out of it with a DQ or whatever. Mm-hmm. This guy, for the last 10 years, as far as WWE goes, has been completely reactionary to everything that he sees on TV. He sees something on TV. He doesn't say before it. He doesn't, this is what you're supposed to do. And then he is reactionary to it. Not only is he reactionary, he does this thing where he's like, kind of supposed to be, maybe. Nothing he ever says isn't a matter of fact. Everything is designed to backtrack. He doesn't know anything. Yet, when this week Roman Reigns cut a promo and said that he may not be appearing, I believe it was in Jersey again, maybe a long time before you see him, suddenly he knew that Roman had signed a new deal a few months ago to say that he was going to be part-time. Idiot didn't say anything when he knew. He sat on that story as a journalist who charges $10.99 a month for his news. He wants you to believe that he sat on that story, right, and only mentioned it after Roman Reigns said something. Well, here's the thing. Roman Reigns didn't sign no new deal. That's the first thing. And everybody else, they piggybacked off that. Even though he has like a 10% success rate, you would think that these would now turn around and go, hold on a minute. Let's salvage our credibility. Let's dig a little bit deeper. Let's just not blindly quote him. No, Dave said, and they quote it like, new report on Roman's contract. New report. It's some guy guessing who is very, very poor at guessing. Yet in this industry, this wrestling industry that we talk about, I can be ridiculed and take from idiots in these comments for being almost 100% right. And this can get his coverage everywhere for being around about 86% right about stuff, which is ridiculous. Then we had these other journalists coming in with little bits and pieces where they were closer, but they still didn't get the story. So here's the story, and I'm going to go ways back here, probably for the last time, to tell you the whole thing properly. We all remember the Shield. The Shield came in 2012, right? They all came in on they had developmental contracts for NXT, and they were given, and when those developmental contracts were originally done, the pay increase was automatically built into the contracts. It was like, you'll get this at NXT, and if you go up, you'll automatically receive this. There was no pay negotiation until the likes of Drew McIntyre and Samoa Joe and people were signed. It was very much a case of, you'll start here and then you'll get the minimum when you go onto the main roster. But instead of waiting out the 3 years, these guys were in main events and six-man tags on nearly every TV, right? Mm-hmm. So just 15 months into the deal, at WrestleMania, during WrestleMania 30 weekend, give or take a few days, they all re-signed brand new deals, started afresh. They got 5-year deals, each and every single one of these guys from the Shield. And all of them got $2 million. Didn't matter that they were going to push Roman to the moon and he was the guy, and that Dean was kind of seen as this weird, like, pillman, but couldn't be a full pillman because, you know, it's the PG era, whatever. Like, it was still, everybody was given $2 million, like, for their new deals. Roman obviously made more on the merchandise side of things over that 5 years. The end of the contracts would have been at WrestleMania 35, okay? Had everything gone according to plan. Now, it doesn't make financial sense or business sense to let the contracts run down to the very end. So Seth Rollins signed towards the end of 2018. We then saw in 2019, Seth Rollins became the Universal Champion, beating Brock Lesnar. He was the guy that renewed for 5 years. So Seth's deal runs out in 2024, which is weird because when all these MJFs and maybe Dean Ambrose comes back or whatever, Seth will actually be allowed to go if he hasn't signed a new deal by then himself. But with him having like Becky there and her having the tour bus and everything like that, there's no way he's going to go. It's just interesting.
Yeah.
So he's the first one who signed. So his deal runs out at the end of 2023. So if you take away like the 90 days or whatever, he'd be able to go somewhere in 2024 because it's right at the end of 2018 where he signed. So 2023 is where Rollins will finish. Ambrose did not re-sign. They began negotiations with Ambrose at the same time as Rollins. He said no. He said no to the same money. He said no to a $500,000 increase. Now, they didn't want to pay him $3 million because Seth Rollins was going to go and be the Universal Champion. And Ambrose wasn't seen as the same level as Seth and Roman, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the last minute, in the last week, they did offer Ambrose $3 million to stay. And he turned it down, having that payout coming at AEW along with the creative control and whatnot anyway. We now know that he gets $5 million a year, which makes even more sense why he left. But that was the time that the contracts were supposed to expire. And Rollins' contract did not expire because he re-signed and took the renegotiated contract. And Dean Ambrose did not, which is why Dean Ambrose is not with the WWE. Roman Reigns is the complicated one. So if we go back to Rey Mysterio's contract from a few years ago, he wanted to leave the WWE, but he had a long injury, and WWE said that contracts are frozen legally when you're injured, and you owe us all this time that you have to come and work. And he got out of it somehow. I think Conan was actually involved in that. So Roman Reigns had this situation with the leukemia and a wellness violation suspension.
Yeah.
He owed the WWE 8 months, which is why they did not enter into negotiations. Because had they entered into negotiations with Roman Reigns before he got leukemia, he would have had 12, 13 months left. So when he took his time off for leukemia, he wasn't even in contract renegotiations. When he came back in 2019 to work the remaining period, which is the 7 months plus the suspension time, they then entered into renegotiations with Roman. And a deal was decided that Roman would get a increased money deal of $4 million. He would be the Universal Champion. And after his Universal Championship run was over, right? When he would beat Bill Goldberg, he would then begin to work a reduced schedule, which he wanted to do because of his condition and to spend more time with his family. That was already decided back in 2020. But Roman, obviously, with the whole situation with the pandemic, that contract never started. That contract never started because the increased money and the increased and the dates with the layering that he would work all these dates as champion and then he would take a reduced schedule afterwards didn't ever kick in because of the pandemic. The pandemic kicked in while he was still finishing the previous contract. Now, normally a new contract overtakes an old contract, but the new contract was structured in such a way, especially with him being the Universal Champion at the start of it, that it was better to wait until the 1st of April. So what happened is when Roman returned, he came in and he signed that contract, and the whole deal was once again the same. I will do what you need me to do as champion, but when I am not the champion, then I want to eventually get down to this part-time schedule. Now, at the time, the WWE were not touring. So what we had is these pandemic contracts that were given out to Mustafa Ali and Matt Riddle, the two main guys who renewed during the pandemic. Roman Reigns had pandemic conditions in his contract. Now, when we hit July, and knowing what Roman Reigns' schedule and number of dates was going to be, the WWE made a request to Roman Reigns, which he said yes to. We need to reestablish our house show business. We would need a commitment for you as champion. We are not intending to take the belt off you at this time, and we are going to keep this going for a longer period than previously discussed. So could you please work as the champion on the house shows up until WrestleMania, especially for this European tour of Leipzig, Paris, and London? Okay. And once you have concluded those dates, you are going to remain as champion and start the reduced schedule as the champion anyway. So this was always the plan. And people are turning around going, oh, he signed a new deal and he's now going to miss pay-per-views. No, it was always the deal. he did the company a favor, and for doing that favor, he's made merchandise numbers that are up there with John Cena and Stone Cold Steve Austin. It was decided that we are going to go back on the road, and every single weekend to do that, we are going to need you, Roman, and will you please do it for us? And he said yes. And he said he would do it up until and through the most lucrative periods, which was the return to touring, which July to September normally isn't, but this was a unique situation. Christmas always is, with the MSG tour and all of the gifting of WWE tickets that they promote. And then, of course, you have WrestleMania season and the post-WrestleMania tour, which was London, Paris, and Leipzig. And even to the point, I have information in such detail that Roman Reigns' wife came with him to the tour. He was supposed to finish this schedule in Paris. That was going to be the end of it. Thank you, Roman. Thank you for doing these extra 9 months for us that were not in your contract. Thank you for helping us with the house shows. Please have a week in Paris with your wife for the anniversary. This was previously discussed. Even that was said, hey, we really need you for the pay-per-view. Would you mind just spending 2 days in Paris? We'll get you out of London straight away in a private jet after your match. We'll get you to Paris on Saturday night. On Friday night. You can spend like Saturday there. We need you for the show on Saturday. We'll keep you there from Sunday. We'll get you to Monday Night Raw on Monday again privately. We can only afford to let you have 2 days in Paris, and then you can start your time off. So he also even agreed to that. He even agreed to adding an additional pay-per-view, right, and an additional set of house shows on top of finishing up this schedule in Paris, which was originally the plan. So this is what's really happened. Roman Reigns has a contract, which he signed, was agreed at the end of 2019, that came into play when he returned in 2020. Additional financial compensation, that's come up a lot on the show, was agreed, and they requested that he do the house shows. He said that he would do it. He's made massive money doing that. And now we are getting back to the contract that Roman Reigns originally signed. This does not mean he's not going to be on SmackDown. This does not mean that he's working Brock Lesnar's schedule. If anything, it's much closer to Shawn Michaels' old schedule or Ronda Rousey's schedule, which is similar to Shawn's schedule back then, or even the schedule that Daniel Bryan had before he left. This is a schedule that's been given to a load of guys. This is not a Brock Lesnar schedule. Everything you've read has been misreported. Nobody has a full story. This is what it is. This is just Roman Reigns taking additional time off on the back end of doing all that extra time. And after that, you will see him moving to a normal part-time contract. And I say that as a Ronda contract, a Shawn Michaels contract, a Daniel Bryan contract, an Edge contract. This is what I'm talking about. I am not talking about Brock Lesnar. So whoever's putting that out there is wrong. So that's the story.
So we're going to just basically see he works television.
He works television, and I'm sure that you'll see him working in Chicago, Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, like the big boys. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good. I mean, you know what's funny is I always see seeing online all him talking on the video, and I commented, I go, I'd love to know what he said, but I can't understand one word because of that microphone and the echo and everything. And someone was like, yeah, he could be ordering a McDonald's. I couldn't tell you what the hell he said, one word of it, but that was the big rage.